There was a knock at my door, just 3 taps. Measured, deliberate, not urgent, not uncertain, but the sound still stopped me cold. I was in the kitchen cutting apples for Jonah's after-school snack. The knife paused mid-slice. I looked at the clock, 6:13 p.m. The street outside was quiet. No deliveries, no neighbors, no scheduled visits. Behind me, Jonah called out from the living room, "Mom, you want me to get it?" I wiped my hands on a dish towel, heart suddenly hammering in my chest. "No," I said sharper than I meant. "I've got it." The door was only 6 steps away, but I felt every one of them. Through the peephole, I saw a man I hadn't seen in 13 years. Older, thinner, more bent than I remembered. A cane in his right hand. A look I couldn't read on his face. But I knew that profile. I'd seen it in my nightmares and worse in Jonah's cheekbones. I opened the door. He looked up, and then passed me to Jonah standing barefoot in the hallway holding his violin. My father's eyes widened. He didn't say a word, just stared. At Jonah. At the boy he'd never met. At the face he'd once turned away from before it ever came into the world. And I knew in that moment he didn't come for me. He came for the secret I'd carried all these years. I was born in Eugene, Oregon, a small-town kind of place where everyone knows your face, your father's job, and what church pew your family sits in on Sunday. My father, Grant Hartwell, owned Hartwell Timber Works, the kind of business where men shook hands hard and passed it down from father to son. He was a deacon at St. Mark's Baptist and a man who believed in work order and obedience in that order. My mother, Margaret, made lists. That's how I remember her. Grocery lists, prayer lists, lists of who brought what casserole to the church potluck. She loved us in the quiet, structured way of someone who'd never been taught how to comfort, only how to manage. Then there was Erin, my older sister. Perfect hair, perfect GPA, perfect purity ring. While she was away touring colleges and giving testimonies at youth retreats, I was just there. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't loud. I just didn't fit the mold they'd pressed around me. Then, at 17, I met Mateo Ruiz. He wasn't from our church. He wasn't from our side of town. His parents ran a small flower shop off River Street. He tutored after school and played piano at his uncle's restaurant on weekends. But what I remember most was how quiet he was, not shy, but still. The kind of stillness that makes you feel safe. We met in senior civics class. By spring, we were taking walks after school. By summer, we were planning a future one that didn't involve Eugene or timber or pews. Mateo had earned a full scholarship to the University of Washington for architecture. I was accepted to a design program in Portland. We talked about renting a studio apartment together, sharing grocery bills, hanging houseplants in windows that actually let the light in. But life doesn't always honor young plans. Just after graduation, Mateo was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, a heart condition he'd never known he had. It hit like a landslide. One week he was jogging with me at the park. The next, he was fainting in the kitchen. He was put on a transplant list. Doctors said maybe a year. Maybe less. That's when the conversation shifted. From next semester to, what if I'm not there? From dreams to legacy. What no one in my family ever knew was, my pregnancy wasn't a mistake. It was a goodbye gift, a promise, a way to keep him alive even when his heart couldn't hold on. I planned to tell them. Not right away, not in the chaos of Mateo's hospital visits and transplant tests. I just wanted to wait until things were calmer, until I could bring them something other than fear. I imagined sitting them down at the dining table with the lace runner and the glass fruit bowl that never moved. I'd have Mateo with me, maybe even the sonogram. I thought if they saw the grief in his eyes, if they knew the truth, they'd understand. But I never got the chance. It was a Saturday, late October. I came home from the hospital to find the house. Still. Too still. My mother was in the living room holding a folded tissue, dabbing at her lips like she'd been crying but wouldn't allow herself to smudge. My father stood near the window with his back to me. The pregnancy test, the one I'd wrapped in paper and hidden deep in my desk drawer, lay on the coffee table between them like evidence at a trial. "Sit," my father said. Not shouted, just stated. Flat. like a sentence. I sat. Before I could speak, he turned and said, "Who is he?" "It's Mateo," I said quietly. "That boy," he snapped. "That Ruiz kid," I nodded. "Does he even have papers?" "He was born here." That's not what I asked. I opened my mouth to explain, to tell them about the diagnosis, about the decision we made together, the life we chose to create. But my father raised a hand and cut through it all. "You will fix this, or you will leave this house tonight." I looked at my mother then, hoping, pleading, but she just whispered, "We only ever wanted the best for you." Then came the twist that cut deeper than all the rest. From the hallway, my sister Erin stepped in holding my sketchbook, the one I'd hidden the ultrasound inside. "You shouldn't have lied," she said. "I found it by accident. I had to tell them." She said it like she was doing me a favor. "You had to," I whispered. My father's voice roared again. "You've shamed this family. You think carrying a bastard child honors God? You walk out that door with this stain. You're no longer my daughter." I stood, legs shaking, hands cold. "You stopped being my father," I said, "when my child became a sin to you. And I left. No suitcase, no plan. Just a girl with a heartbeat inside her, and a home behind her that never really saw her at all." I disappeared without a sound. No dramatic exits, no slamming doors, no social media rants. Just silence. I spent my first night behind the old Albertsons on 8th Street, curled up in the back seat of my car with the windows cracked and the driver's hoodie balled up under my head. I kept one hand on my stomach. Just enough of a bump now to remind me I wasn't alone. By day, I walked the strip malls asking for work. I got laughed out of 2 coffee shops told to come back after the baby. One gym finally gave me part-time janitorial shifts, 10.50 cents an hour, to clean the locker rooms at night. It was something. I learned which gas stations didn't mind if you loitered, which diners would refill a water cup if you looked clean enough, and which parking lots had cameras but no security patrol. I moved like a ghost through the town I once called home. Avoided Main Street. Avoided people who might ask questions. I didn't want pity. I wanted air. Time. A place to land that didn't smell like disinfectant and shame. It was week 3 when I fainted in the staff break room of the gym. I'd skipped breakfast. Again. Woke up to someone holding an ice pack to my neck. "Lily Hartwell," the woman asked, peering down at me. "Yes, I thought I recognized your face. I used to teach you art. 9th grade. Ms. Dunley." I blinked up at her, disoriented, embarrassed, and holding back tears. She didn't ask where my parents were. She didn't ask why I was working at 7 months pregnant. She just said, "You're not sleeping in your car tonight. Come on, I have a guest room and too many quilts." That night, in a stranger's spare room, I sobbed harder than I had in months. The mattress was firm. The sheets smelled like lavender. There was a framed watercolor of an old oak tree above the bed. She made me chamomile tea and let me talk or not talk. Ms. Dunley became my first anchor. She helped me enroll in a GED course, found a clinic for prenatal visits, taught me how to apply for food assistance without shame in my eyes. She didn't try to fix me. She just saw me. And for the first time since Mateo, I didn't feel erased. Jonah came into the world on a Tuesday morning just after dawn. It had rained all night, that cold Oregon kind of rain that seeps into your bones and makes the whole world feel gray. But when he let out his first cry, I swear the room brightened. 6 pounds, 1 ounce, a full head of dark hair, and a pair of eyes too wise for a newborn. I held him and whispered, "Your dad would have loved you. You look just like him when you're mad." We stayed at the hospital for 2 days. Ms. Dunley never left my side. She brought a pale blue blanket she'd crocheted herself and a stuffed owl she'd kept from her classroom. No one from my family came. No flowers, no phone call. Not even a name on the hospital visitor log. I wasn't surprised, but surprise isn't required for heartbreak. The first weeks were a blur of midnight feedings and quiet crying. Not Jonah's, mine. There were mornings I sat on the floor of the nursery, my back against the wall, just staring at the bassinet and wondering if I was enough. No income, no partner, no family. Just me and this tiny soul who depended on me for everything. I loved him fiercely, but love doesn't cancel exhaustion, or fear, or that sinking feeling that maybe they were right to doubt me. At 3 weeks, I wrote a letter to my parents, short, careful. I enclosed a photo of Jonah in the blue blanket, eyes wide, his little fists curled like he was already fighting for space in this world. On the back, I wrote, "Your grandson, Jonah Ruiz Hartwell, born December 12th. He's healthy. He's strong. He deserves to be known." I mailed it without a return address. Just in case. Just a thread thrown into the dark, hoping someone might catch it. 3 weeks passed. Nothing came back. I checked the mailbox every day, telling myself I wasn't really expecting anything. Told myself I was strong, that we were fine, that I didn't need them. But when the mailbox stayed empty day after day, I stopped lying to myself. They had chosen silence, and that choice echoed louder than any rejection could. Jonah turned 1 month old with just the two of us and a cupcake we didn't eat. I lit a candle, held him close, and whispered, "You're still here, and I'm still here, and maybe that's enough." I passed my GED 6 months after Jonah was born. It wasn't easy. I studied between feedings. I memorized math formulas while Jonah napped on my chest. Ms. Dunley quizzed me over breakfast, her coffee growing cold, while she explained fractions for the 3rd time. When the envelope came in the mail with my passing scores, I cried. Not because I doubted I could do it, but because it was the first time in over a year that something said, "You're still moving forward." Jonah learned to crawl in that same apartment. He babbled his first word "ba" at the edge of a worn rug in the living room while I filled out job applications. By the time he turned 2, I had enrolled in a community college for digital design. I'd always loved sketching shapes, fonts, colors. I used to draw made-up cereal boxes and poster ads as a kid just to see if I could make them look real. Now I was learning how to turn that into a career. I worked nights cleaning offices and weekends at a secondhand bookstore. My body was tired, but my mind, it felt alive again. The first time a local coffee shop paid me $75 to design their new logo. I stared at the check for 5 minutes before depositing it. I used the money to buy Jonah new shoes and a box of real art markers. Not the dollar store kind, the good ones. By the time I finished my degree, I had a handful of freelance clients. A friend of a friend offered me a desk in her co-working space. Within a year, I'd filed the papers for my own business, Hartwell Design Studio, not for the name I came from, but for the name I rebuilt. Jonah started preschool. He loved puzzles, Legos, anything he could build and take apart. At night, I'd find him lining up his crayons in color order, humming to himself. He had his father's calm and his focus, and every time I watched him sleep, I knew Mateo would have been proud. We didn't have much, but we had rhythm. Work, school, home, laughter. It wasn't the life my father wanted for me, but it was the life I chose and earned for us. It started with a phone call from the community center. They were hosting a Women Who Lead event and wanted to feature small business owners who had overcome adversity. A friend from the co-working space had nominated me. I almost said no, but something in me, maybe for Jonah, maybe for myself, said yes. The interview was simple. They filmed me at my desk, sketching on a tablet, Jonah reading quietly in the corner. I talked about design starting over and the power of stubborn hope. I didn't mention my family, or Mateo, or the years that broke me. Still, the story aired on local TV, then made its way to Facebook. A week later, an email showed up in my inbox. Subject, I saw you. It was from Aaron. I watched the segment. You look strong. Jonah looks so much like Mateo, it hurt to see. Mom and Dad saw it too. Dad's not well. He had a heart scare last year. He talks about you more than you'd think. They want to meet Jonah, if you'd consider it. I reread it 3 times. Not once did she say sorry. Not once did she ask how I'd survived. But something about the way she said it hurt to see, told me maybe, just maybe, they had finally seen what they'd turned away from. I didn't reply that night. I sat on the floor back against the fridge while Jonah colored beside me. He looked up and asked, "What's wrong, Mom?" I shook my head. Someone from the past just knocked, and I'm deciding whether to open the door. They arrived on a Sunday. I'd agreed to it after 3 weeks of quiet emails, setting boundaries I wasn't sure they'd respect. No sleepovers, no photos posted, no pretending nothing happened. They pulled into the driveway just after noon, a silver sedan with out-of-state plates and the same nervous energy I remembered from childhood Sunday drives. From behind the curtain I saw them, my father thinner leaning on a cane, my mother stiff-backed, her gray hair pulled tight, and Erin, arms crossed, the same controlled calm she always wore. Jonah stood beside me holding the violin case I'd asked him to bring out. "Do I call him Grandpa?" he whispered. "Not yet," I said. "Just be yourself." I opened the front door before they could knock. We stood there for a moment, 4 adults and 1 child, all of us unsure who should speak first. It was my father who broke the silence, not with words, with breath. He exhaled sharply when he saw Jonah. His eyes didn't move for a long time, just locked on the boy standing tall and quiet, his face unmistakably Mateo's. "This is Jonah," I said. "He's 13. Jonah stepped forward, offered his hand the way I taught him. "Nice to meet you," he said politely. "I play violin." My father reached out slowly, like the air between them was fragile. When their hands met, I saw it, the tremble, not of age, of regret. My mother spoke next, her voice trembling. "You kept his name." "I kept everything I replied." They stepped inside. I led them to the living room where Jonah's photos lined the mantel his first day of school, his first piano recital, his science fair ribbon. And in the center, one black and white photo, Mateo at 17, smiling in a suit too big for him. My father's eyes landed there. His mouth opened, then closed again. "We didn't know," he said finally. "You didn't ask?" I answered. Jonah moved to the corner and began to play soft, slow notes, just enough to fill the room. The melody was one he'd written himself. He called it Found. Nobody spoke for a while, not because there was nothing to say, but because the sound of what had been lost was louder than any apology. When the music faded, Jonah placed the violin carefully in its case, then left us in the room without a word. He didn't need to stay. He had already said more than any of us could. I looked at the 3 people across from me, the ones who had once watched me walk away, and said nothing. "You said you didn't know," I began. "So let me tell you." And I did. I told them about Mateo's diagnosis, about the night we made our choice, not from recklessness, but from love and grief and hope. I told them about the hospital visits, the transplant list, the goodbyes. About fainting at the gym. About the back seat of my car. About giving birth with no family in the waiting room. About mailing a photo and getting nothing in return. No one interrupted. My father sat with his hands folded tight, jaw clenched, eyes glassy. My mother cried quietly, a tissue crumpled in her lap. When I finished, Erin whispered, "I didn't know it was that bad." "You didn't ask," I repeated. My father finally spoke. "I thought I was protecting the family. I thought I was doing the right thing." "You protected an image," I said, "not a daughter." Silence again. Then he added softer, "I was wrong. I see that now." I believed him not because the words were eloquent, but because they cost him something to say. My mother reached for my hand. "I kept the photo," she said. "The one you sent. It's still in my drawer. I looked at it every Christmas. It should have made me feel better. But sometimes memory without presence hurts worse than forgetting." I nodded. "I'm not here to punish you," I said, "but if you want a place in Jonah's life, it comes with conditions. Anything," my father said. "You show up. You don't make him feel like a mistake, and you never, ever try to rewrite what happened." They both nodded. "He deserves the truth," I said. "So do you," my mother replied. "We failed you, and we'll carry that." I didn't smile. I didn't offer forgiveness, but I didn't send them away. Sometimes healing starts with simply staying in the room after the truth has been spoken.